Welcome to this edition of Peak Performance Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performers Podcast. I'm your host, Thor Conklin, and today we have Scott Brown. He's a former actor turned entrepreneur, having started 8 companies over the last 25 years. Today, Scott is the executive director of UpRamp, leads ventures and startup engagement for the global connectivity industry. And he also has the dubious honor of spending $2.5 million on the 21st worst Super Bowl ad in history. Congratulations, man. You beat out number 22.
Oh, man, I'm on a list.
An active advisor, investor, and author, Scott shares his unique blend of startup grit, technology, and clean messaging with startups around the world. Speaking of startups, just trying to get this interview started today has been a test of entrepreneurial ingenuity. I was sharing the story before we got on the air that it started this morning as I was walking out the door for a meeting. I spilled white coffee. I spilled coffee on my white shirt. We went to record this in the way it was set up. Then it wasn't recording. My keyboard, for some reason, is not working. So, Scott, this is either going to be an absolute fantastic interview or something else. We'll probably have like a brownout or something here in Atlanta.
I'm going with fantastic interview.
Right.
How could it go wrong? Everything else has already gone wrong. You've already had all the other things happen to you, so this could only get better.
All right. I'm going to go with that. Give me some good, mojo here so we can get started on the right foot. Scott, I absolutely, first of all, thank you for being on the show. And this area of communication and clean messaging, I find in every aspect, whether the entrepreneur or any aspect of your life, the way we communicate and the clarity in which we communicate is so important. And sometimes it's not just the words, it's our physiology, the way we present that messaging. We've turned into a society of text. I called a good buddy of mine 2 days ago, and I wanted to thank him from the bottom of my heart for something that he helped create a shift in my life. And I thanked him, over and over again years ago. And I just wanted to send a nice, another thank you, because some things are coming up in my life that I'm getting ready to do my first bodybuilding show in 5 weeks. And he was kind of a catalyst that got me on this health and nutrition plan. So I figured I'd drop him a nice little voicemail, right? Just say thanks. And of course, the voicemail said, "I'm sorry, I don't listen to voicemail, so don't leave me a voicemail. Just send me a text." And I'm like, how am I going to send you a text conveying from the bottom of my heart how I feel? Where are we going? And tell us a little bit about clean messaging and why it's so important in 2000.
Oh, Thor, you've hit on exactly the problem, right? I think we've really done a disservice for entrepreneurs over the last 10 years. We've built all of these amazing tools to help them figure out what to build and who to build things for. But we've forgotten the most critical aspect of it, which is if you can't talk to other human beings about what you've built, it doesn't matter. And so there's this way of taking all of the magic that you've put into building something and extracting it and boiling it down into the poetry of your business. And the same thing is probably true when you went to make that phone call. You probably had paragraphs in your brain of all these amazing things you wanted to say to your buddy. And then when it came time to send the text, you probably had to step back and go, wait a second, how can I really convey the heart of what I'm trying to say to this guy in just a handful of sentences? The amount of stuff I can type with my thumbs. And it's the same way with humans today. We've become a culture that needs things boiled down as simply as possible so we can grok the idea and move on. And that idea of shrinking things, of making it as clean as possible, is what gives us a place in our brain to hold it in memory for the next conversation, or for the partner meeting 2 weeks from now, or when I'm in a buying position next month?
It's interesting in this particular case. As an entrepreneur, what do? We fix problems, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
all right, that's the path I was given. I was like, now within those guidelines, or maybe outside those guidelines, how can I? So I actually sent him a video that I sent to him on text.
Oh, there you go.
Right? It was like, all right, you only do text? Well, guess what? You're getting a video from him. And that's how he did it.
Yeah, so you actually changed the rules,
right?
Which I love.
Because then he actually, at least he could see me. I couldn't see him at the time. As an actor, and it comes through in your communication style as well, that it gets very boring if we keep the same monotone pace, the same monotone I'm not a linguist, but kind of a flat tone to it. In your communication, in your language pattern, you vary the speed, the volume, and the pitch of it. How important is that in our conversation?
That's so funny. You hit on the 3 things that I tell people all the time. When they're preparing a presentation in front of people, you have 3 tools at your disposal: pitch, pace, and volume. And volume is the weakest one. And so pitch and pace, that's the whole thing. If you can find a way to pull people in with pitch and pace, you have them wrapped around your fingers. That's really the way to go. But that's really in the delivery side of a presentation or a pitch. And that's super important, along with not bumping into the furniture. But you've got other pieces of it as well. Like, what am I really trying to convey? What's the story? What's the message? What's the core bit of my business that I'm trying to communicate? And finding that is often harder than making sure you don't bump into the furniture.
Yeah. And you work with a lot of startups, and I'm sure more mature companies as well.
You bet.
And getting their messaging really clear. We have a very short attention span nowadays. More people are spending less time reading. They want everything in video or audio form, hence what we're doing right now instead of writing blogs. And so often I see prospects come to me and they're like, take a look at my website, look at their website, and I have no idea what they do. Not a clue. All right. So I'm trying to engage with them. I want to understand what they do.
Yeah.
There seems to be this propensity to create kind of a cutesy flow to the conversation or the messaging.
Yeah.
And I think we've gone so far to one side that cute, creative slant to things have resulted in, I have no idea what you do.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. In many cases, there's been this influx of storytelling experts that have shown up in recent years that are helping entrepreneurs find the story of their business. And, story is important. It plays a key role in how we communicate as human beings. However, used poorly, it actually undermines what it is you're trying to accomplish. And so what I do in clean messaging really starts with your listener. Who is it that you're speaking with? And what's critical and important to them? And if instead of talking about all of the stuff you've built or finding some crazy story about, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker and all of that stuff, really focus in on the thing your listener needs most and how you can help them get there. That's where the power is in your messaging.
And as a younger or newer entrepreneur, how do you figure out? A lot of times they don't even know who their core client is. I know what most of the businesses I started, you think you know who it is, and it's really not that person or those people.
Yeah.
How do you first find out who they are, if you have any tips there? And then when you know who they are, how do you find out what they need?
Sure. We've built lots of tools over the years with lean canvas, startup canvases, business model canvases, value proposition canvases. All of those tools are great for helping us figure out what to build and who to build it for. If you don't know those tools, maybe we can link to it someplace, or I'll tweet them out when this podcast goes live. And we'll find a way to use those tools to find that who. But now, we have to remember that the who isn't necessarily a business. Like I talk to enterprise technology companies all the time. And for them, they think they're selling to JP Morgan, right? Or they're selling to Target. But nobody sells to Target. They sell to a human being who happens to work at Target.
Right.
And so when you think about who that customer is and who your listener is in your messaging, you've got to find that one human being and then narrow down what's the deepest, most human thing they really crave. I could give you an example, Thor, if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Cool. So think about a young company I know that has software that sends alerts when servers go offline. So this is a big challenge for an enterprise company. If systems go down, they need somebody to be alerted. Their customer is a VP of IT. And so that person has grown up through their career wearing a pager, right? Or having their email turned on all the time so they get alerts to make sure they see or know when something goes wrong. And so if you think about that poor person, he or she, they don't really want alerts. That's not the thing they crave. What they really crave is maybe going to their kid's baseball game and not having to worry about a server. Right? What they really crave is the ability to go on holiday for 2 weeks and know that things will be okay. And so if that's the deep human need, you don't sell the fastest alerts or the best, most loudest ping in the history of server alerts. You sell freedom and vacation time and the ability to go to your kid's ball game and not worry about servers. And that's how you start to focus in on the listener rather than the features of your business.
Yeah, I remember back, I don't know if it was probably the 80s. Xerox had a ad campaign when they were selling copiers or leasing copiers, and it said, no one was ever fired for buying or leasing a Xerox.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. You got a purchasing manager. It's like, look, I don't really care about the price here. I just want to make sure I'm not making any mistakes.
Right.
It was extremely popular.
Yeah. And that thing happens all the time. And what we forget is that there's humanity on the other side of the sales cycle. And so if we can really figure out who that person is, what they care about most, then we can find a way to start talking to them like a human being. And then we can back it up with data that they'll remember or a story that resonates, all of those other little pieces that can make the sale happen.
Yeah. It's amazing the number of clients, business owners that won't just go through the process to find out what their customers actually want and need.
Yeah.
Two different things, but let's address at least one of them, what they want or what they need. I was working with a client recently, and I said, why are people coming to you? Why are they engaging you?
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't know. I'm like, don't you think we should find out why they came to you? CPA. And come to find out, 87% basically of all his new clients never had a CPA before. He had no idea. I was kind of shocked too.
That's interesting.
We started, what did we do? We just picked up the phone and we had a conversation.
Yeah.
Why did you choose us? Why did you leave your other CPA? I thought everybody was leaving somebody, right? No.
Yeah.
I was off. They never had a CPA. So we start looking at the numbers. I'm like, wait a second. Do you think maybe in our messaging, in our advertising, in our marketing, we might want to target people that have never had a CPA since we seem to be really good at acquiring them?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great insight.
Yeah. Had we not picked up the phone.
Yeah.
And so often everybody wants everything automated. And then it's like, oh, AI, that'll, now I don't have to do anything. I might not even have to show up.
Yeah. Well, and what we've done over the past 10 years is we've given people these tools, and we all do our customer discovery now, right? We get out of the office just like you did with your CPA buddy. You go call some customers, find out why they made a buying decision. You understand exactly what it is they need, right? And they give you, in those best conversations, all the details. It has to be AI and machine learning and SaaS-based and, attached to my whatever system. It's got to be Kubernetes on AWS. And they give you all of the details. And so then we go build it. And when we go talk to our first set of customers, what do? We repeat back what we heard in customer discovery, right? Oh, I've got a SaaS platform that's AI, machine learning, Kubernetes on Amazon Cloud. And people are like, I don't really give a shit, right?
Does it work?
Yeah, okay, but why do I care? And so if nothing else, if people remember that, yes, you've invested blood, sweat, and tears to build this amazing technology and create this amazing company. But really, when you're talking to another human being, that other human being doesn't really care. They just want to know, how does this thing you've built help me? Yeah. Right? We are selfish creatures. And that's the key. So if you can help communicate to your listener how your product helps them, you will win.
Love it. I got to ask about the Super Bowl ad. How'd you beat up number 22?
Yeah, I know. It's funny. It was a company back in '99, one of those .com companies. And it was my third time as a founder. And I committed the cardinal sin of entrepreneurship. I kind of thought in the heady times of that .com era that if I got customers, I'd be okay. And I wouldn't have to worry about getting money or selling something. And so we put all of our efforts into user acquisition. We built this company up. It was about 150 people. We did a Super Bowl ad in that .com Bowl of 2000. And I don't know if you remember that, but I think it was the Titans and the Rams. And it was really close in that fourth quarter. So our ad was in that fourth quarter. Everybody was still watching the game. We got a huge, massive users that all showed up on our website just as our ad rolled. And about 6 weeks later, we had to shut the company down.
Wow.
It's brutal. And about 150 people we had to let go on a Friday. And I'll tell you, you learn more from the failure than you often do the success. Oh. And there are so many stories in that. But today I can look back, what is it, almost 20 years later now, and think, wow. At least I'm on a list.
There you go. And you were a little bit more evolved as an entrepreneur as well, because back in 2000, people weren't even interested in customers. They were just interested in eyeballs.
Oh, yeah, right?
That was the term. How many eyeballs you have?
Yeah.
That equates to the bottom line.
I know. And, we were all caught up in it. And today, I think if we just remember that building a business, being an entrepreneur is like a lemonade stand. Build something that people want, sell it for more than it costs to make, and do that over and over again. That's all there is to it. Now, there's a lot of stuff baked into that. But as long as you remember that you've got to have something people want and sell it for more than it costs to make, then you're going to be all right.
Absolutely. So I know you have a new book coming out. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thanks, Thor. It's Clean Messaging. It is the framework to help startup founders talk to humans. I've really put together 10 years of work that I've done with startup founders to help them figure out the way to find their core message of their business and then communicate it to the outside world. It's really designed for very technical startup founders, innovators in large corporations. I've even had people from local government now using this framework to help them figure out how to talk to the humans in their district back at home.
Interesting. So it's kind of a workbook. In other words, hey, here's an exercise. Here, do this. Move on to the next module.
Yeah, think of it like a canvas, just like that lean canvas for startups to the value prop canvas, and the data moves from one to the other. The data from the first moves to the second, from the second right into the clean messaging canvas. And we're designing it to look and feel like the tools that an entrepreneur is used to today, to give them a quick and easy way to hone and craft a message that will be simple, audience-focused, memorable, repeatable, something that people will help communicate on your behalf.
Got it. Now, you specifically said this is for startup founders. I think a tool like that would be extremely helpful for someone that has an established business that taking a look at, because I think it's always helpful to go back and look at, all right, this is who we are today.
Yeah.
Where do we need to be in the future? Where's the market going? And if we've evolved as humans and as an organization, what does our messaging need to be for the next decade?
That's right. That's right. We've done a bunch of science over the last 20 years or so. Some friends of mine have, and they've looked at this issue, and they found that as you speak to others, if you get it mostly right, you could kind of, make deals about 17% of the time. But if you can really engage with humans and get them to respond both viscerally and emotionally with the benefits that you're providing, they will remember your company 85% of the time. And that's huge. Remember, it's not necessarily about what it is you're trying to solve, but it's about how what you're trying to solve helps somebody else, and will they remember it tomorrow? Because it's the memory side of it that people forget, strangely enough.
Well, and what's the key to the memorization of it?
I think there's two things. One, you've got to find a way to hook into the things that people already remember. So if you can find a way to talk about your business in a way that makes sense to somebody, like there's a company that we use as an example, an acorn company. And this acorn company talks about how an acorn in your hand is worth $2 in your wallet. Really simple. It's a common phrase, but people will remember that and repeat it. Oh, I just met this acorn company. It's like, $2 in your wallet. Right? I just kind of get it.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if you can pair a stat, a number, with some very short little story, almost a sentence long or less, it actually gets remembered longer. So I could tell you that for my acorn company, there are 2.7 million oak trees in Colorado. But nobody's going to remember how many oak trees there are in Colorado after this conversation. But if I tell you that if I took every oak tree in Colorado and stacked them end to end, I could build a tree house on the moon. People will go, oh yeah, he's the tree house on the moon guy.
Yeah.
I get the scale, right?
Yeah. It was interesting that I read something recently. I don't know if this is true or not, but there's more people alive today that have ever died in the past.
Really?
I cannot authenticate it, but
okay.
It's true. It's like that's really interesting.
Huh.
We have 7 billion, approaching 8 billion now on the planet.
I'm going to Google that, Thor.
Good. I'd like to be able to repeat it if it's true.
All right. I'm going to find out, and I'll send you a note.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's true. Let's say it's true.
Yeah.
If that was a key metric for your company, the number of people alive versus the number of people who've been dead, how would you talk about it to the world? Would you give them that one little kind of story? There are more people alive today than have ever died. Or would you find another way to phrase that?
Well, certainly if I was starting a franchise for funeral homes, I think that would be a good,
Yeah. A funeral parlor sure needs that number.
It's going to be looking up in the future.
Everybody needs that service eventually.
That's right. People are dying to get in. I knew this conversation would go sideways at some point. But at least I haven't spilled any coffee on myself, so that's
No, you look great. I feel like this is going really well. Let's talk about funerals more.
Yes. Talk about I had a business funeral. You were talking about the point that you learn more from your failures than your successes. And I think even more so when you succeed, you start to lose insight into why it's working.
Yeah.
And you get delusional. A mentor of mine says you start smoking your own tailpipe.
Right.
And then things get off the rail.
You think you're smart.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so often it's happenstance or something else that brought you to this point. And you overcommit or you over-index the success in your brain when really the lessons are coming from the places you failed along the way to that success.
Yeah. And it's interesting, as businesses get bigger, the numbers get bigger. As a startup, people say, that's a tough phase. It's a startup, and there's not a lot of capital. There's not a lot of revenue. There's also not a lot of expense in many cases.
True.
You start building that company and things aren't staying where they should. When things get like, what was your payroll towards the end of that company?
Yeah.
It's like, shoot, payroll's coming.
Yeah.
We got a $3 million issue come Friday. It's
right.
not, it's not a $60,000 or $600 issue on Friday. It's $3 million.
It's real money. Yeah. In my day job today, Thor, I run ventures and startup engagement for the global connectivity industry. Think of it, the big mobile and broadband providers around the world. And oftentimes I talk to startups who want to sell into that space. And, if you think about the path they're on, an emerging tech company, right? Maybe you've been in business a couple of years. If you take a product of yours and you roll it out for the first time to a new customer base, and let's say you get 10,000 customers all at once, and then your servers go down. What do? Everybody scurries, you fix it, it's back up online 4 hours later, you order pizza and beer, and everybody celebrates because you got 10,000 customers. Now, if I bring that same startup into one of the largest connectivity companies in the world, and they roll that technology out, and they get a bunch of customers, we'll call it 10 million all at once, and the servers go offline for 4 hours, that startup isn't going to celebrate anymore, and the CEO of that enterprise that you sold into will be in front of Congress. And so the differences in scale and impact as you start to build your company over time, it's a real consideration. And so you have to gauge the risk and the impact of every decision along the way.
If you had 2 or 3 bullet points about clean messaging, what would they be to the audience?
So the number one thing I say to everybody is imagine what your life would be like if your message was as clean as your code. You spend a lot of time and energy building and polishing that amazing product of yours, and you've probably spent almost no time thinking about how you're going to talk about it to the world. Let's try to change that dynamic. The second bullet I would give you, Thor, is remember that it's about the audience. It's not about you. When you're talking to the media, when you're talking to anybody else, a customer, it's not about how hard it was for you to build this or the amazing features of your product. It's about what your product can do for somebody else. And the third thing I would say is I've written all this stuff down. You can go get it on Amazon today. I would invite you to come take a look. I'm happy to help. This is really hard stuff. But together, I think if we focus a little bit more on messaging, I think we can find a way to shrink that number of startups that go under in that first 2 years.
Yeah, it's amazing the number of companies that like to talk about themselves. We were founded in 1380.
Oh, yes.
And we've been around forever.
Oh, yeah.
And we're bored and this. It's amazing. No, they don't want to hear about you. They want to hear about them.
That's right. Yeah, all of that stuff is really interesting later on.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Yeah.
But it goes at the back of the presentation, not in the front of the presentation.
That's right. Yeah. And there is a place where you can talk about yourself and talk about your company. Though at that time, it's when you're interviewing somebody to bring them online. Maybe you're talking to an investor. You want somebody to join your journey. Then it's okay to talk about the struggles, your journey from innocence to experience. All of that stuff is really interesting if you're bringing somebody to you. Yep. But it's not as helpful when you're trying to join somebody else's journey.
Yeah, I remember we did this back in the 80s when I was in New York, big, huge leather-bound books with private equity deals. And I mean, I don't know if anybody read any of it. I remember we were pitching one firm for probably 3 or 4 years. Wasn't getting anywhere. So we're like, we got to change this up. So we brought the presentations in, and we had, there were 6 or 7 presentations. We brought them all in little waste paper baskets. And we went into the boardroom, brought in paper baskets, and presented them, each of the members of the team with a waste paper basket and the proposal in the waste paper basket. And they're like, what is this? Well, like, look, every other proposal we brought to you guys ends up here anyway. We figure we just start there.
Right. Skip the middleman.
Just got to skip it. We're going to help you out. We've already put it. We've given you the receptacle.
Oh, that's funny.
And we actually got that deal.
Yeah. I have a great mentor and friend of mine who gave me a tip a long time ago. He said, if you've got a brand new idea and you spend a lot of time trying to build the PowerPoint presentation, print it out and then spill some coffee on it, like your white shirt. Crinkle it up a little bit, right? Draw some scribbles in the margins and bring it in a mess, because the other person's going to think this guy doesn't know what the heck he's talking about, or this is all just idea phase. And so they're more likely to join your side of the table in helping you figure out whether this is going to work for them. Super clever. I use it all the time.
I love that. We actually once had a presentation where the projector didn't work. We couldn't do it.
Yeah.
The prospect said, wait a second, I don't buy anything unless we have overhead slides. so the projector was, the white light thing worked. That was about it. So we just started getting up there and just started making like little bird things over our heads.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
He's like, I like you guys.
Yeah.
Lights weren't there. So
give me a truckload.
Little bird thingies,
That's hysterical.
Get great. But it's about connecting with other humans. And, sometimes we act like robots. And when the other side sees that you're just another human being and you can actually connect with someone, that's where the magic happens.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's a little bit of EQ, a little bit of empathy, being able to understand your listener's perspective, to show that you get it, goes a long way.
Yeah, I had one client years ago. I said, pick up the phone and just start calling some of he had 34,000 customers. It was an online business.
Yeah.
Low price point. I said, start calling some of your clients that have purchased from you before and just leave them a message saying, this is the owner of X, Y, and Z. Thank you for purchasing with us, in the past. This is my cell phone number. If you ever need anything, just call me. We're getting punked. Start getting these phone calls back. He's like, who is this? He's like, it's Jerry from blah, blah, blah company.
Yeah.
He goes, you're the CEO? He goes, yes. He goes, I've never gotten a phone call from a CEO for buying a water bottle.
Right.
And I said, what do you think that client is going to do, that customer is going to do in the future? Do you think they're going to buy their water bottle from just anybody on Amazon?
Yep.
No.
Yeah, you got it. That's right.
You took that little extra step.
Yeah. It is so important. We see it all the time. In fact, one of my best friends in the whole world today, I met him because he was the CEO of a company and I bought his product. He called me about a week after I signed up, and it turns out we were fast friends immediately. Yep. Amazing.
Yep. All comes down to clean messaging.
I hope so, yeah. I'm on a mission, Thor, to find a way to help these emerging tech companies and startup founders find a way to keep their businesses alive. And they stay alive by selling things, right? It doesn't have to be so hard. You got to sell stuff. Yep. And you sell stuff by talking to other humans.
Yep.
That's the key.
Love it. I think we can drop the mic on that one.
Sounds good to me. I thought this went really well.
I know. I'm not going to jinx it. It's still recording. The lights are still on. Everything seems to be going well. So it took us a little while to get here, but that's what entrepreneurs do, right? Run into a roadblock and we just figure our way around it. So Scott, I really appreciate having you on today. Look forward to reading the book. You can find all the information on how to reach out to Scott on the show notes, and head on over to Amazon and pick up a copy of the book. Appreciate it.
I love it. Thanks, Thor. This was a lot of fun. Take care.
Thank you.